Hi everyone, I can see attendees joining as we speak. Welcome to today's webinar and thanks very much for joining us. Over the last 4 months I've been hosting webinars for the medical device, pharmaceutical and healthcare industries. Hundreds have joined these webinars, it seems, to understand what others are doing in this tumultuous COVID time. And the feedback has been extremely positive, with most feeling reassured that they're on the same page as others. Along with taking away some key learnings that they may not have thought of. So in the first couple of webinars, 3 months ago now, we talked about keeping people connected, happy and engaged. It seems that whoever I speak to is still keen to explore this, given that things are changing daily. And, you know, we're especially reaching out high to all of our Melbourne friends and Victorian friends. I know it's not for you guys right now. Today we're going to go down a similar path, however go a little more in-depth and long-term, exploring the longer-term impact on people of working from home and all of the changes and transitions and all of that stuff that we have to take into account. It's a big topic. So to start today, we have joining us to share her insights and knowledge, Monica Watt. Monica is the Chief Human Resources Officer for Elmo Software. Elmo is a HR, payroll and rostering time and attendance software solutions provider. Monica has over 10 years experience in compliance and HR roles and is responsible for optimising business performance through innovation and people engagement and elevating team performance through innovative leadership. Monica has a broad range of experience in leading organisational transformations, driving large-scale growth, talent acquisition, leadership development and succession planning. Clearly a wealth of HR experience. Monica, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I love it. You know, obviously marketing have done really, really well with my bio. And so I need to go and say, well, thanks.
Oh, you do. It's a great bio.
It's a really big thing, but thank you. I really appreciate being here, Elizabeth.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Very, very much appreciate you too. We're aiming for sort of 45 minutes on the actual webinar, some time afterwards for question and answer session. Everyone, you can pop your questions into the Q&A box, which sits at the bottom of the screen. So let's get underway.
Yeah.
So approximately 90% of people thought that they would like to continue working from home at least some of the time. Employee engagement is down across the board. The stats show that 71% of people are not engaged with their work organisation, which is a huge number.
Massive.
Percent are actively disengaged, with only 20% of leaders engaged.
Yeah.
Strategies have you put in place at Elmo to counteract this, and what are you hearing from others on what they are doing?
Yeah, we're in a big challenge. So that data actually was taken from 2017, which was a Gallup report, you know, so I know Gallup are particularly running one at the moment, so about what are the data and what's the position, because I think you've seen that there's been a very significant shift in how and why people are wanting to operate, you know, and I've seen some of the data, which is quite interesting, that are showing that there are 3 very distinct camps of working, you know, the remote, the hybrid, as well as in the office. There's another one that comes in a little bit play that we'll talk a little bit different later, which is about outsourcing. So some of the things that we've done at Elmo have been not dissimilar to what other organisations are doing to try and engage. Obviously, the first thing is working towards finding out what the pulse of your business is, and the annualised surveys are gone. The routine check-ins are really quite valuable and important. When we moved into our lockdown, so we are across 6 geographies in Australia and New Zealand, and obviously my heart goes out to my Melmonians as well as my Auckland teams at the moment, who, you know, they are in lockdown, and it's quite a complex space for them. And we've got people that are in the office in Sydney, we've got people in the office in our other locations, Brisbane and Perth as well. So it has been very, very different, and each of those have different opportunities as well as challenges. Talking to individuals is really important. So surveys for starters. If you're going to do your general, it's not an annualised survey any longer. It's actually fundamental pulse surveys. When we did the first shutdown, Elmo made a decision in March when COVID was really starting to ramp up of what we were going to do as a business. So we tested our business continuity plan, how we were going to operate, the way we were going to operate, and then we actually fast forwarded far quicker than what Safe Work Australia or the medical profession in Australia, and we mobilised against that much faster, 2 weeks earlier, and we went, okay, we need to keep everybody safe. And so what we needed to do was emphasise what was going to be productivity, what was to do with engagement, how we were going to engage. So one-on-ones, how were they going to continue? We created a virtual community. The virtual community was anything that we possibly did face-to-face that could be translated to a virtual world, we did. So whether it was from morning sunrise meditation, which quite a few of us have been through daily meditation, through the day we had yoga, we had jiu-jitsu. Every morning at 10:30 we have a virtual morning tea. And there was various hosts, so each from a team lead up, it would be paired with a different division leader, and it didn't matter whether it was from the executive down to across the board, it didn't matter, to really encourage the relationships across the teams and divisions, and I think that's really important. One of the most critical factors when you moved into the remote environment, we moved to Zoom, obviously. We're on Zoom now, whether it's WebEx, whether it's GoToMeeting, fatigue was really there. And I think we were going cross-eyed when it was looking at how we're operating in the Zoom world. So setting up parameters and engagements of what are the rules of engagement, what does digital behaviours look like? So we created learning modules that were around remote working. What do you need to be looking towards? What does digital engagement look like? We then focused on care packages, creating care packages. So we would normally, as an organisation in each of our locations, we would have morning teas. We would have team lunches. We would have incidental swag, you know, all different sorts of things that we had. So my team came together and we came up with various ideas of every 3 to 4 weeks we would send. And so we'd pull together little boxes of treats, you know, morning teas, afternoon teas, various little knickknacks that we had, and sent them to everybody's home. And it was really quite an important, it was translating what we were going to spend anyway in the office. We just translated that out and definitely kept Australia Post
Sorry, can I just ask, how many people does Elmo employ across ANZ?
So we are circa around 400.
Okay.
So
400 packages.
Yes, it certainly is. And so we went through things, we went, you know, grow with Elmo. So we sent out seedling packs. I've actually got plants out on the deck from my flowers that are starting to grow. You know, we had sweet and savoury. So we had, you know, we had waffles go out. We have little Nutella jars. We just more recently had Elmo cups that went out with soups and marshmallows, hot chocolates and marshmallows. This last one for our Melbourne only has gone out, which is trying to get them away from their digital screens. And we sent brain training, colouring, you know, so mindful meditations. I just see that Priscilla has asked who created those. We actually did. So there was my experience manager, Marita De Rocha, is quite a wonderful person. So we actually pulled these together. Costco was my friend at one point, or anywhere else that we could do online shopping. And she predominantly pulled those together until the social distancing relaxed and we could actually do it together. So she and I, and then one of our other team members, so we built them together, and it was something that was really important. And where practicable, in most of them, I put a little personalised message on each of the front of the box, something that I knew about that person. So it was really, really important. So the connection and collaboration, I think for me, knowing I'm an introvert, I'm quite comfortable in my own space. but everybody knows that I'm a hugger and that I really love my people, and that I was missing them, and the value of being able to tell them that I miss them and that we cared about them was really, really important. Another thing that we did use was we use Slack, we use Connect, we use all of the solutions, but there's a Slack, there's an app, and it's called Donut, and it's to do with coffee check-ins. And what it does, it actually identifies that through that app where there's an emptiness in somebody's calendar, and it will pair people across the division to actually set up a coffee chat.
That's good.
You know, so there's a lot of different things that you can do. Not only about resourcing, but also giving the opportunity for people to engage and connect. But fundamentally, we did start with 3 distinct surveys. One was about communications that they were receiving, one was about resources, and one was about management support, and did they know what they were supposed to be doing. Then in this last week, we've just released another one, which is again looking at what the shift in the behaviours about who they are as human beings, what resources are they getting, do they believe or feel what we're doing is enough. And so we're actually asking questions about us as an organisation.
Yeah, that's really good.
And reaffirming, but you want to know the good, the bad and the ugly.
Yeah, that's really good.
You're never going to get 100% success inside any organisation. You want to work towards a 95. It'd be really nice if you can get more than that. But you at least know what it is that you've got to improve, and you've always got to work to the majority. So we've asked questions about us as a business, us as a management team.
Yeah, so that just shows a real partnership between the management, senior leadership team and the employees.
Yes, very much so.
All of these things are fantastic. I'm learning. I'm like, oh, I've got to do that. Got to do that. I've only got a very small team, so but very different to 400, obviously. But how's that been measured? That level of engagement since you've been doing all this stuff for people. What's the feedback been like?
So it's actually been really good. We started off with a positive. So we had a more than 70% completion of our first round surveys.
Yeah.
What we've also done is one-on-one. So in particular, some of the areas that I've gone into is more recently with the Melbourne shutdown again was contacting every one of our from our team leads up, just checking in to see how they're going, what do they need, what support mechanisms do they have. My team, so I manage the HR shared services, but also encompasses IT and facilities and procurement, along with the L&D and the coaches. So they're also challenged with picking up the phone or sending Slack messages and just doing preemptory check-ins with people as individuals. But it's been really important going through that survey data. We also have a suggestion box, so which gives us feedback. The other part is looking at absenteeism. It's interesting. I've also done a lot of wellbeing emails. I don't think I could have written. I've sourced it from various EAP providers, but really looking at challenging how we think, how we operate, asking about what hours that we're working, what sort of resources are we needing. What do you think a break looks like? I've been focusing on what our leave debt is, what sick leave has been taken, where it hasn't been taken. It's quite interesting. Sick leave has dropped because people think they're working from home. So how do they prove that they're sick? Yeah, if they were in the office, they'd actually leave. It's quite an interesting thing. So actually looking at and really questioning some of that. And also being really open. I've taken leave. I was on sick leave, communicating that I'm on sick leave. Our CEO's taken leave this week, that he's on leave, you know, so we're saying whilst we can't do the normal routines of activities that you think, we need to change some of our thinking as to why and how we take breaks, when we take breaks. But the reason why we take breaks, not when and how, but what the reason why we need to take those breaks. So checking in with each of our managers has been really important. The other noticeable difference, the other really noticeable part is how many people have returned back to our office. So we've had an opt-out approach into, we first had an opt-in, we then had a far too many, so we've now got an opt-out. of people. So we consistently, I'll give you just an example with our Sydney-based Elmo HQ. We can have up to 260 employees, so which means with the social distancing, we can have a maximum of up to about 150 employees across our 2 floors. We're averaging around, let's say, between 110 to 130 consistently each day. Coming in.
Wow, that's, yeah.
So, but also, let me be clear, it's like there are other things that we're doing as well. So we do have temperature checking. We do have swag, so we've got our face masks, our Elmo face masks. Everybody has their own little portable hand sanitizers. We've got, I feel like I'm half alcohol because of the amount of sanitizer. My hands are so dry. So we have those particular, we've moved to a digital sign-in, so we do have a Who's On location that we use, but now has an OKR, so they don't need to touch pads. We've opened our doors. We're providing lunch each day, so people don't actually have to leave the office. So we're providing and creating a self-sustaining ecosystem that people can at least feel safe coming into the environment. We've also shifted whilst we still have the hours of work, we're very mindful of public transport, the issues with public transport. So we've built a library of activity from north, south, east and west here in Sydney. What are the best times to commute? And what we've done is we've opened our doors earlier than we normally would have in the office. And we've extended what we would say, so from 7 to 10, that we ask that you come in across that time frame.
Okay.
Because then we'll do it, and then from 3 till 7 on the other side.
Yeah, right.
So the shift is, if you can get a large block between 5 to 6 hours social connection inside the office, then that's sufficient. That is quite sufficient. But it's respecting how people want to work and how they need to work.
Yeah. How do you keep people, even though the desks might be socially distant? How do you keep people? Because it's very goes against our innate DNA to say, oh, don't come near me when you want to talk to someone at work, right?
Yes.
You stop that happening.
It is really interesting. I always say we hire adults and I'd like them to behave like adults.
Yeah, but that doesn't always happen.
No, it does not always happen. But the respect that we have inside our business is very, very clear, is you need to ask permission. You can't assume just because they're in the office space. So we do have, we've got signage around, we've got how many people are allowed in a room.
Okay.
Move certain spaces, but it still is adults being adults. How do you encourage that? It's really interesting. It's a really, really strong question that you've asked, because people will be conflicted by saying, I can't do this through the week, yet then find they get to the weekend and go shopping, or head to a cafe, or head out to the pub or something, into an environment that isn't as safe as what we have inside our workplace. We're a known quantity. That's an unknown quantity. So it's a mindset. But coming back to your original question, is we've made it very clear, is if you're moving into somebody's space, you have to ask permission. Once they've got that level of comfortability, it's quite interesting. You'll see certain teams that have relaxed that between themselves.
I'm sure.
But still very conscious into other teams. But they've had to ask, and they've asked consistently. We've got others that aren't comfortable. And it's interesting, we've got certain numbers of signs that can be inside a meeting space, and if they're not comfortable, when they head to their desk and they log in via Zoom or they log in from home, it wouldn't really matter. It's being very mindful. Again, I'm a big believer, policies are designed for the 1% of the population that you don't want in your workplace, but guidelines are there to guide us to how we should act and behave. We've created learning modules about what that looks like. What is COVID inside the workplace? What is that? We've got COVID safe policies about that is being updated all the time.
Yeah, right.
But I think having it front of mind, we've got signs everywhere, no different than every other organisation. But I think it's respecting the fact that everybody has a different view on what that looks like.
Yeah.
And so what you need to do is find out what is that view.
Yeah, right.
And then agree to that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's an amazing job that you've clearly done. for 400 people. That's massive. But yeah, and a lot that's gone into that. So I just wanted to ask, is there a difference between what you and others are doing now compared to what you'll need to do in the longer term to maintain high engagement? Or will it be along similar vein of what you're doing, which I imagine it probably would be?
Look, I think it is. There are certain things that I'm going to be able to switch on and switch off. There are things that are fit for purpose right now, albeit, as I've said, the virtual community, so the digital morning teas that have been occurring will still continue, but in a different vein. We've shifted from the 5 days a week down to Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Right.
So we've created that cadence. And whilst they're fundamentally at the moment just for Melbourne, it's actually for the entire business, because the one thing that I've identified that we've all felt with the virtual community being able to be established was the connection that we had across each of the states and territories. So amazing, the relationships that were forged. We all know that there's a difference between each of those locations, but when you can build on a social basis of cats, dogs, you know, I've had my grandchildren on my lap, you name it, we've had everything. You're building a social rapport, a real fundamental connection, and that's something that you don't want to lose. Just because, well, we're not in flight now, so why should we, why should we stop it? That's something that will definitely continue.
And will you still continue to do pulse surveys post-COVID or like?
Oh my gosh, yes, we have been doing that for quite some time, and the reason our pulse surveys have shifted from an annualised, which not many organisations do these days. They'll usually do biannual, at least at minimum. But an annualised survey, we're now focusing on specific activities. It'll be whether it's wrapped around our values, whether it's wrapped around a certain scenario, wellbeing, wellness. What you want to do is ask 1 or 2 questions, 1, 2, 5 questions that are really getting to the nuts of a problem or a behaviour or a trend you're starting to see. Or something that you're wanting to shift, see a behaviour shift. You've got to ask those questions.
So the surveys then are very niche. Like you might have 40 topics. And then you'll got, like, the surveys will be, so because obviously if it's too broad, you don't get enough of the nitty-gritty info, and that's what you obviously make changes.
I've had the same conversation with my other teams. It's also very mindful that everybody surveys, right? So it's like our satisfaction surveys, from our IT team, our talent surveys that come out, to hiring managers, 360 surveys. You then go to survey paralysis at the same time. Survey fatigue. So it's really mindful of what threads you're wanting to look. And so I'll give you an example. We're using communication as one of those. Right? So you want to say, so first of all, it could be about, how do you want to be communicated? What ways of communication, what channels of communication work for you?
Because everyone's different.
Are you getting enough of the communication that you need? What's the shift in the communication? How often do you want the communication? So you're actually seeing a shift, and you're able to build, instead of changing a baseline every time, you're able to show a shift in your baseline, of shift in the context that you're getting the responses. Some of the feedback, I think, coming back to your original part of your question, was some of the things that I'm going to do very differently, and I think every business is going to be the same, will be a significant focus on manager skills and ability to use skills, and working with a hybrid type of workforce.
And that's because your leaders have to be a different type of leader. People working from home,
I look at it the fact most managers at the moment have never worked from home themselves, on a permanent basis or a semi-permanent basis. And let's be very clear, this is not a perfect environment. We weren't set up for success from the get-go. I've worked in a distributed work format previously, where I was hired from my home environment and was never anticipated to go into an office. So I was set for success from the get-go. From my equipment to my policies to my insurance, everything was set. So that was a perfect creation, and it was set for that productivity. In COVID, well, you might have had the setup, but did you have children that sat on your lap? Did you have to homeschool? Did you have your partner? Did you
Yeah.
have, you know, what was happening inside your environment? That
Yeah.
wasn't perfect, you know.
Yeah.
So some of the things there, we had a lot of managers who, first of all, hadn't done that themselves, hadn't actually not known what productivity looks like in the remote environment, because it's the same with when we moved to online learning. Good example.
Yeah.
Everybody remembered when we moved from being in the class to on the screen, and it was just the PowerPoint presentation translated. It was on on the screen,
Yeah.
and so it was the proximity of what you were doing. And it's saying, well, hang on a minute, how much information? I can work faster, can I? What's different types of way do I need to communicate? How's the learning is very different. And
Yeah.
it's no different, you know, working from home. What
Yeah.
hours am I operating? Because it has to be in my time, in my environment, but focusing on outcomes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Engagement. So there are some of the things that I think I will significantly focus on. And so that parts of that will be shifting my recruitment strategy, the types of talent that we're looking for, the types of resilience and skill set that we're going to be looking for.
Yeah.
Because you won't interview without skills and ability or experience. Without experience. So you're going to hunt for what it is, that adaptability.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when I talk to CEOs and senior leaders in our clients, you know, we talk a lot about soft skills, and it seems to me that there's a real trend to go down the path of the soft skills, the you know, what the character of the person, the personality, the EQ, you know, all of that stuff that you can't, you know, no one teaches you that at school and university.
No.
And it's not part of your resume, really. It's really who you are, and that's, I guess, what you're going to need as a leader in moving forward from now on, is that, as you say, that resilience, that, you know, adapt. You know, some people aren't good at adapting and changing. I like change generally, but you're going to see those leaders really needing to adapt to that.
Now, it's interesting. I'll also add, leadership will occur across the layers of the business inside this environment, because you will have champions, you know, so your leadership will come from peer to peer. It could be across teams. Whilst there is a hierarchy of roles and responsibility, leadership will become deconstructed, and really will have a top-down, bottom-up kind of approach to find a meeting of the middle to achieve the outcomes.
Yeah,
because
right.
You don't want people to be told wait to be told to do their jobs. What you want to do is provide the opportunities, as well as the performance measures and give them the resources they need to do their jobs effectively, as well as the autonomy to innovate. Whilst you don't want rogue behaviours and you don't want people to be constantly changing everything, it's interesting, people are trying to change policy right now when it comes to flexibility, you know, the hybrid work model, everything else. For me, this is not the right time to be creating that. If you don't have that flexibility right now and you haven't responded with flexibility, then I wouldn't be creating policy right now, because that's like me trying to change my tyre when my car is still moving, right? It's fundamentally saying you need to take stock of what were the success measures of you working remotely. What was the impacts on your social connection? What was your retention like? What was the ability to hire your talent? There's a lot of things that we still need to look at. We don't have the data behind us that actually says what is that successful policy going to look like for your business. And that's where some of the things I'm concerned, I'm not going to say that they're right or wrong, but I wouldn't be comfortable to be making policy on the fly. I want to be able to have a responsive environment that says, in this current point in time, this is the way we need to operate. But I'm not going to set things in stone that I do know are going to be successful.
Yeah, of course, because things change all the time. Yeah. Can I ask you, I've just got few other questions here. So further statistics, I know we talked about the engagement statistics, but further statistics show that 63% of Australians admitted to being less productive at home, with only 54% believing that their organisation has the tools and resources to enable effective remote working. Can you speak to this, and do you think that this is contributing to anxiety and mental health, and what can be done about this? And do you know what other companies are doing to maintain a positive mindset for their employees?
I think the answer, and everybody that's on this call would be going, yes. Yes, it's quite. Look, it's not that they're less productive. I think it's a different level of productivity. And the reason why I think they're less productive is that whether it's they're trying to translate what they were doing in the office to the home environment.
Yeah.
And that's different, right? So that's looking at outputs rather than outcomes. That's looking at busyness rather than productivity.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's also not prioritizing and really not asking the questions of saying, what do I need to be doing right now? It's also because of the environment, they're less productive is because, well, whether it's the cat, the dog, the child, the spouse, homeschooling, the television, the anxiety, all of those sorts of things that are in there, as well as, let me be very clear, the sense of urgency to think that I need to respond immediate, because if I don't, it means you think I'm not working.
Yeah.
So which means I'm losing my flow of getting my work.
Do you think that's creating anxiety for people?
I certainly do. So what you need to do is what we've done as well. So we've set rituals, specific rituals inside. So whether they're team rituals, we've also been very clear working with managers that they need to also respect, yes, you're working from home, and yes, you're up at, sparrow fart, 5 a.m.
Yeah.
Please, set the ground rules. If you're slacking or emailing your team, do not be upset that they're not responding to you. Don't make them feel, oh my gosh, should be online.
Yes.
So setting the ground rules of what those expected behaviours should be, but also still using your calendar. We also we are setting our status that says, that we're not available. We're setting our status that we're, when we're on calls, we're actually physically telling people when we're available, not available.
Yeah.
Because no longer can you spin around and say, oh, hang on a minute. It's pretty hard to really do a touch point. You'll be online and you'll see a little green icon, whichever one you're using, that says you can see, oh, they're online, but hang on, they're online, but they're not responding.
Yeah.
It's because they're bloody working.
I think because everyone's so different, right? I think that when I talk to companies, they're talking about structuring people, letting people structure their days to suit themselves. So if you've got to take the kids to swimming in the morning and then before school, and then say you can't be online at 6 a.m. when your boss might be because they're up early, or you want to go to the gym, or you want to, whatever you can do to maintain good mental health.
Yeah.
With trying to manage homeschooling, your family, everything that we've got to manage apart from work.
Yes.
And there's just so many things, isn't there?
There is a lot there. And I think one of the things that you do need to understand is, if you haven't defined the ground rules, and look, we didn't do this in the first instance as well, because we actually already have flexibility in our environment, and we do have people. I permanently, well, not permanently, inconsistently, but I like to have it. Tuesdays is my working from home day. And pretty much always has been.
Yeah.
Right. So today I'm sitting at home.
Yeah. Right.
It's not always the case. So we've always had a level of flexibility.
Yeah.
And so that there was an assumption, and remember, that makes an ass out of you and me. I've learned that well and truly during COVID. Is we didn't define in saying, okay, we've gone to a permanent environment of this. So what are your rituals? When do I need you to be on? As a team, we've confirmed, what does this look like? For my team, 10 a.m. every morning. That's it. We're all online. We're all doing our daily stand-up.
Yeah.
Up until then, it's well, when and how. It's no different. What I'd shifted is from face-to-face to what it is translated. Coming back to one of the original points that I've highlighted, is my stand-up has now continued post-COVID, now that I'm in the office 4 days of the week.
Right.
We are now coming together face-to-face or via Zoom, and we've decided that this is really valuable for us as for human connection.
And you weren't doing that before?
No, we weren't.
Okay,
I would have my routine rituals and my one-on-ones, but we are now, because I manage 9 different teams, bringing them all together to build that sense of community out of my entire division has become invaluable.
I don't think you're busy enough.
I don't think any of us are. But coming back to your original question, the other part about anxiety and mental health and what It is understanding that you need to set the behaviours, you need to set the ground rules, and as a manager, you need to respect what you agreed upon.
Yeah.
I'll just send this. I'll just do that. You know, and the well of anxiety that our people think is, hang on a minute, have we changed the rules? You know, have I missed something? Because remembering when some of this is in environment and somebody hasn't been part of that, say a Zoom call because they are doing the school pickup, because we've already determined that the ritual was going to be, we were going to have a 10 o'clock, so we could do that, and you've broken that, and then I'm missing out on a piece of information. Remember, this is where information can create vacuums, and vacuums create stories, and then information can be used as a negative and a positive power. This is a minefield. So yes, anxiety and mental health, it's pretty simple in some of those areas. Create your rules and then stick to the rules, and then check in to see that the rules are working.
Okay. And what do you guys do for anyone who does have, or how do you diagnose or recognise, obviously, you know, not a doctor, but with people who you think, or one of the leaders comes to you with some mental health issues?
Now you can
in place.
So it's really interesting in a 2D world when you're looking at, you know, you're not looking at the whole person. It's interesting. In a room, you know what a pregnant pause looks like while somebody is thinking.
Yeah, right. Body language.
They're frozen.
Yeah.
But you're also able to see, you know, whether they're engaging. You're looking at their eyes, whether they've got their video on, starting to look at how their manners are. What's their frame? What are they dressed like? You know, all of those different sorts of things. You're starting to look at things that are more 2D related. Asking questions, remembering. I've moved from doing a monthly wellbeing activity to at least once a week. This week I've got 2 going out because I'm focusing on burnout, because I'm starting to see some of those signs starting to creep in, purely because people aren't taking the breaks because they feel, I'm not going on a destination holiday. So again, coming back to my original statement that I said, people need to understand why they're taking breaks, not where they're taking breaks. So being really open, the amount of responses I get against my wellbeing emails that go out is astounding. Access into our employee assistance program. So we moved in from a single subscription to a company-wide and extended that out to family members as well.
That's great.
Right, so we did that, you know, as, you know, you always know overarching, you know, costs of managing well-being of our people far outweighs what the outlay could possibly well be.
100% agreed. 100% agreed. People, you see it all the time. If people aren't happy in their personal life, they're not happy in their work life. So
it works both ways, right? And if you can start seeing some of those things. Now, we had this really good example. We had an employee who was in absolute utter crisis and said, I have to come into the office. And it's like, well, you can't come into the office because we're in shutdown. Even I'm not in the office, you know, so it was quite interesting. We then found out what was happening was their spouse thought because they were home that they should be there doing the home duties. They should be doing everything else because they were home, not stuck on their computer and doing anything else. So what we did, we had to individually create a timetable of activities that was sent through from the manager through to the employees. So then the spouse could then know when the employees' breaks were on. We would never be so prescriptive, but this employee needed to get some of that so could set the ground rules of what their spouse was thinking their behaviour. They just thought them being home meant they were home and they were doing some work, but they don't know what that work was. So very individual cases that we had to assist them to help them craft the narrative of what it was for them working at home. So no, they didn't have to do the washing. Yes, they did, but the way they would normally do.
If my mother's ever here, she says, "Oh, are you going out today?" I'm like, "Yeah, I have 4 meetings off, so like I, you know, go and meet or whatever." Oh, okay. It's like, I have a job, you know.
Yes.
I think when you're at home, people don't understand, like people, well, that generation's, my mother's in a set. understanding that, no, actually, I'm working.
Yeah, and I think coming back to the original point of understanding and defining those rules about what that productivity, I believe I'm more productive at home when I've set the schedule of the rules of what it is I need to do. My team know, please do not schedule a face-to-face, because of, like, my last three Tuesdays I've been in the office.
Yeah,
Or
right.
because there's specific meetings that I need to have. Because remembering, I also manage facilities, so I'm doing building fit outs and developing properties at the moment.
Right.
So there's a lot of particular activities that we need to do. So it's actually saying, I respect what you're trying to do and what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's also then respecting the fact is what you're doing is respecting that if you're willing to block time for somebody else to attend your meeting, to attend their meeting, why can't you do the same to yourself? So it's, again, it's a mindset shift. And there are some of those things is we are just compelled to do.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, we are that, and parts of that is in the remote environment or the working from home environment, is we haven't reframed that to say, what does that look like? So, you know, you've asked me about what other companies are doing to maintain their positive mindset. I think many organisations are doing the best that they can with what they can.
Yeah. So not all companies have the resources that you have.
Now, it's interesting, the resources, and I can see that in one of the questions about, you know, there's a difference between CapEx and OpEx, right? So I manage the G&A budgets inside our business, so which means I manage the fundamental operations of those. And there are certain things that you can't take from. You can never take once you've already given, but you can change what it is that you've given. And understanding that the wellness and well-being of our employees right now fundamentally is more important than anything. I'm not detracting from revenue is critical. We're a listed company. Revenue is fundamentally critical. We have shareholders that we need to report to. But to do that, we need our employees. And for our employees, they need to be safe and secure and productive. So the short-term, you know, the short-term pain, I would like to think is going to create a long-term gain.
Yeah,
We won't be able to sustain this for a long term. Let me be very clear. This is a short-term measure to try and help our people sustain and survive. There are certain things there's no way I could possibly sustain as an organisation a daily lunch. There's no way. But I'd like to think, you know, that I could have a weekly lunch because, you know, teams can have that connection. It's been really valuable.
Yeah, of course.
So there are things that we're doing right now that are really hard on the purse strings. Yeah. But they're important.
Longer term, as you say, short-term pain for long-term gain.
That's correct.
We're at 3:15. We've got some questions, but I do have a lot of other questions for you, but you've been so generous with your sharing your information. I do just want to ask you this one, though, before we go to questions, because this question I get asked every day by clients. So as we know, foundations laid at the beginning of a new employee's relationship with their new organisation greatly influences what happens with them in the long term and impacts how they perform, their level of discretionary effort and subsequent productivity, therefore your return in investment in them and how soon that's realised, and then ultimately how long you keep them for. Clearly the onboarding process is one of the most important things to get right, and it's one of the biggest predictors of whether someone lasts with an organisation for longer than 18 months.
Yes.
So is Elmo still hiring? Are your colleagues still hiring? How's onboarding virtually going? Can you offer any advice on recruitment and onboarding virtually?
So yes, right. Yes, we are hiring and we're using Zoom for as many interviews as practically possible.
Right, yeah.
Some candidates actually do welcome coming into a meeting where they can.
Yes.
Interesting, you know, it's not something that we fundamentally subscribe to, but because if we're in the office, we can extend that to them. But also we've got those socially distancing types of behaviours that we need to comply with. because it's in every, they want to see our office, you know, they want to be a part of it, other than just Melbourne and Auckland that can't get anywhere.
Yeah.
Look, the onboarding part has been a little bit more complex, you know, as we courier resources to our new employees, you know, that's been one.
Yeah.
I think that's the hardest part because, you know, other than that, before we went into lockdown, we recorded videos of our offices, welcoming people through. Again, my experience manager, Marita, along with my L&D manager, created these and met with us to do welcomes, you know. So my CEO, Danny Lessam, even comes out of you know, and gives them an elbow bump saying welcome. I look forward to giving you a handshake later. They move into induction as per normal, you know, but they've got a close buddy by their side.
Yeah, that's good.
For me, that is something that I will definitely continue post-COVID, right?
The buddy system.
Yeah, the buddy system. So we always had that inside their, you know, you've always got it inside their teams, but what we've done is created those buddies that have started together. So we've paired people that are starting on their same journey.
Yeah, that's good.
And it's been really, really valuable. So I think, and also what I'll be doing is adding more videos from the individual teams. I think that's been really, really important.
Yeah.
The other thing that we've gone is, it's not that we've shifted things a little bit differently with that now my talent team has always had this, but they're working more closely with my HR and L&D team.
Yeah.
Is they're checking in the 1 week mark, remember?
Yeah.
The 1 week mark, how are they going? All of my team are actually rotated in to actually contact somebody, you know, and that's all of my team, whether it's IT, facilities, procurement, makes no difference, to check in.
Yep.
Just sense check. At the 1 month mark, we're focusing on the psychological contract, right? Have we delivered what it is that you thought? Are you getting from us what you need? What are you not getting? So we're really closing that really fast. But what my talent team are doing is saying, is Elmo living up to what it is that you felt that we were going to be?
Yeah, that's good.
Are we as an organisation?
Yeah.
The other parts of that is saying, you've looked at this, you know, what are the opportunities that you see inside of Elmo? What are the things that you can tell us about? So that happens at the 1, 3 and 5 month mark prior to the end of probation. Right.
And this is either virtually or face-to-face.
That's correct. At the moment, it's virtually.
Right.
So
in Sydney, yeah.
Well, that's right. No, because remembering, I don't have consistency. I've got people inside and out of the office.
Yeah, right. Of course.
You know, so you have. It's ideally it's face to face, but you know, we're having a great conversation. Then this is via Zoom. So there are some fundamentals that are there, but I think recruitment itself has not been the challenge right now, meaning, and not because of the remote scenarios, but I think the biggest challenge that we have is our talent are fearful of putting their stability at risk in moving into a new role. You know, that's been a big thing, you know, unless
you mean so people that are current employees
aren't moving
to a new role within Elmo.
Yep. So we've got people saying, you've got to look at some of the strategies. So some of the strategies that we're using is reducing probation or removing probation altogether. So the risk is on us, not on them.
Okay, well.
Because people are really fearful. And if we think you're the right talent, then we'd like you with us. But so you've got to find the right scenarios and strategies to circumnavigate that. And we should be taking the risk because they're losing stability. And that's fine. That could be a costly exercise, I'll grant you. But it's also saying, I'm willing to invest that and risk that in you. If I could remove that risk off the table, would you still want to be with us? If they say yes, then we're the right hire for them. Meaning, because they're hiring us just as much as we're hiring them.
Of course. Totally.
So that whole process, ensuring the psychological safety, the psychological contract, making sure the role, that they're OKRs and they know what they're supposed to do to perform and have their objectives assigned, that their manager is communicating in the way that they need to, as well as, let's look at reward and recognition. I know something that we talked about is value and visibility. You know, you can be via Zoom as long as you're delivering value through you're okay, and shifting and being innovative in what you're doing. then remember presenteeism is busyness is not performance.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So output is not outcomes. And I can sit at my desk and look amazingly busy and not do sweet things.
That's right. Exactly.
Right. So coming into that, it's saying, how do I help you to demonstrate value? How do I help you to demonstrate that you're achieving objectives?
Right. Do you think that companies don't embrace this hybrid way and strongly encourage people to go back to the office, which I am hearing a little bit about? Do you think those companies longer term won't attract the best talent? Because I know that when I speak to candidates, and we speak to many, that one of the first, well, pre-COVID was what flexibility do they provide?
Yeah.
Work from home 2 days a week. This is pre-COVID.
Yes.
So do you think those companies that are probably a little bit antiquated in their thinking around that won't attract the best talent?
Now, it's interesting. It's different. If you're talking of remote working, no, I don't believe that they won't. But if they don't have flexibility, then they're gone, right? They will not compete in the talent market. You know, so gone are the days about you proving yourself and building trust that you might get flexibility because of tenure. Or, you know,
that's right.
It's now an automatic expectation. And talent will soon move on if they don't get access to flexibility, whether it's ad hoc or fixed.
Yeah. So that's what I thought too. And that's,
you know, it definitely is. It will be a challenge because I don't mean to sound disrespectful to the environment that we are, but this is the state of play. Employees are wanting to be paid to come to work, and they're incentivized to work, right?
Yeah.
So there is a significant difference, and so it's trying to operate and work within that environment. So I think there are some challenges. Sorry, my granddaughter has just arrived.
That's all right.
So,
this is the beauty of technology, Zoom, and you know.
I have 3 of my grandchildren that live with us half of the week. So.
Oh, that's no worries. It's fine. It's fine. So let's move on to some people's questions because we don't have a lot of time.
Yes, please.
Okay. So we've got one here. I know this person. Sue says, I'm jealous cost containment measures has meant we couldn't spend any money on things like this, which is...
It's sad, Sue, isn't it? Because really, you can always rob Peter to pay Paul. You know, Peter will always be paid back. But if you don't do that and don't work about even the nuances, like there are lots of things that we can do free, you know, connection part, you know, the recognition shout outs, some of those particular things that we can do are free. But yes, I'll admit, we have been very generous in some of those areas, but that money was going to be spent somewhere else, and it just means I've repurposed that elsewhere. I must admit, I am in a blessed position to be able to do that.
Yeah, Hayley says the same thing. This all sounds great, but how do you afford all the things that you've put in place? Gifts, care packages, lunches. Businesses have lost revenue and have limited funds. There isn't any funding for these extra nice things, unfortunately. So
yeah, so again, it's a repurpose. So my forecast of what it is to take to operate the business, whether it's to do my wellness. So remember, you know, it's to do with my amenities. What is it costing, and what can I do to repurpose into there as well? Yeah. So I can and do appreciate. I'm definitely not going to say this is a really positive frame and environment, and I don't want to disrespect any other environment that's done it. Doesn't have it. I'm in a very blessed environment to do that.
It is hard. I guess you've got to think of little ways that don't cost a lot to.
But yeah, I literally have moved money around like no tomorrow to try and make these things happen.
The wellness.
So really,
like things that don't cost much.
So some of my corporate social responsibility activity, which I would normally give outside of the business, I brought inside the business. Okay. So there are some things. So some of my wellbeing programs that would normally be outside of the business, or subscribed to, I've brought inside of the business, and I've repurposed. So whatever I can, I've repurposed.
Yeah, understand. Thank you. Ryan says, what are ways we can measure productivity of our people working from home?
Now, really good question. If they've got key results and they've got measures that they're actually working towards, then you should be able to see that. And it's not time bound. So remembering we've got people, there's more interruption in the office per se, meaning discrete interruption and direct interruption versus what we've got here at home purely because of needing to be on point all the time. If you're looking at KPIs, KRAs, OKRs, doesn't really matter what you've got, is what do you need to be seeing each week, or, you know, what is it and how you're doing. What you will see though, Ryan, is a shift. So if you've got a monthly cadence that's shifting towards your KPIs of saying what are you doing, your check and measure for that, your cadence check-in should actually come back to a weekly, saying what has been the roadblocks, what have been the opportunities, what have been the impacts, and where have we been able to see that, and what are the impediments, because going remote often means there's an impediment, and it's usually a siloed activity because you're reliant on another team or somebody else to help you facilitate delivering your work. So bringing that to a weekly cadence. Also using different engagements. So I use Trello boards, which, because I operate in a Scrum Agile type of environment, so I run with Scrums. So what are my stories and what are the particular activities you're going to see that? And that's in real time. You can see where things are moving and you can see clearly what is roadblock, and then you can identify. So whether you're having a weekly cadence, you can actually see and check in on those. If not, the other part, Ryan, is to actually get rid of the other noise, the white noise of what fundamentally is a nice to have versus need to have. You know, we do things because they're easy to be done, not necessarily that they should be done.
Right. Ryan's also said, do we need to adjust our expectations of productivity?
Coming back to my last statement, you need to define what is the most important thing that you need to be seeing that's going to shift the needle. Remembering, I think many businesses during this, we reforecast, you know, our guidance to the market during COVID. We knew before pre-COVID world what our financial revenue targets were going to be. COVID hit. I don't think any business could possibly achieve those. Right, so then, okay, the same thing is what level of productivity? We've got sales teams, we've got implementations, you name it, we've still got the same level of productivity, but the revenue generation is different because the environment is different, our customer expectations are different. But what you've got to do is actually say, what is productivity? Again, output is not outcome based, and productivity is not time bound. And I think that's a significant shift as well. Gone are the days that it's performance by sight. I occupy a chair that says this means I'm actually working and doing and achieving my objectives.
Yeah.
What you're actually focusing on is saying, what do I need you to do? And then what's the stretch beyond that? But it's also saying, I work to an 80-20, right? And my business is a cloud environment. We work with a minimum viable, solution. If you're working as an MVP, part of that solution means you're constantly iterating, right? So if you're always focusing towards, you know, I always say an 80% for me is 100% done, because which means I'm constantly evolving and adapting. If my teams can work towards an 80% success, then I'm very happy with that. And so it's actually saying, what is success? What does success look like in that? So Ryan, I think that's a really good question, and I'm really happy to take that one offline with you a little bit further.
And Ryan can contact you via LinkedIn.
Yeah, via LinkedIn, by all means, anybody can. More than happy to.
Thank you, Monica. Look, it's 3:30, so we better wrap up. I can't tell you how wonderful your insights and knowledge. I mean, I seriously have about 6 more questions.
Look, I'm happy to answer those questions, and you might want to flick those. I'm happy to email you my responses to those questions.
Okay. If anyone's interested in that, getting some more info, if you could reach out to me on my email, which is elizabeth@ppdsearch.com.au, or my LinkedIn, Elizabeth Pettit. And I can, we can have a chat about that. Thank you, Monica. Wonderful, wonderful. If anyone wants to have a conversation with Elmo and, to learn more about what they do, please reach out to me and I'll give you the details of who you can speak to. And also, as usual, we'll be sending out a 1-minute survey. I'd be very grateful for your feedback if you could take that 1 minute to do that. Look, thanks for joining us today. Monica, we might get you on another webinar to cover more stuff. Hello, grandchild.
Oh, this is Eva.
Hi, Eva. But thanks, everybody. Really great to share everything with you today. And
yeah, thank you.
Stay safe and well and take care. Thanks, Mon. Thanks, Monica. Bye.
Take care, everybody. Stay safe, stay sane.
Bye.